What's up everybody, Jared here with carbuzz.com, and today I am bringing you an in-depth walk around and review of the 2022 Buick Enclave. This is the most luxurious Avenir trim. The Enclave was given a refresh last year. This is the largest of Buick's SUVs that all start with the letters EN. You have the Envision and you have the Encore as well. The Enclave is very closely related to the Chevrolet Traverse, meaning that this is among the largest crossover SUVs money can buy before you start stepping into full-size territory with things like the Ford Expedition, the Chevrolet Tahoe, and the GMC Yukon. So let's go ahead and check out this luxurious, updated Enclave. We're going to start off with the front end, where the styling is going to be very reminiscent of the Buick Avista concept, which was a gorgeous looking concept. Now, I'm not saying that this Enclave is anywhere near as good looking as that concept, but it is kind of nice to see that the styling has at least transferred over to production at least a little bit. We've got some cool sleek LED lights down here. These are actually the main light down here towards the bottom. I believe these are just like the turn signals and the daytime running light portion. We don't have the new Buick logo just yet, so this is the old Buick logo. We have kind of a blingy grille here on the Avenir. So Avenir is like the most luxurious Buick trim that you can get, sort of like how Denali is for the GMC brand. This color, if you're wondering, is called Rich Garnet. It's like a very deep sort of red. When there's no light, it almost looks black, but you can really see this sort of reddish maroon pop when we're in the full sunlight like we are now. I think it's a lovely color. I would definitely opt for this if I was looking to buy a Buick Enclave. Because we have the Avenir, we've got these kind of brightly polished 20-inch wheels that look quite nice. We also have our Avenir badge here in some kind of fancy text as well. So towards the side profile, we're again going to see a lot of relation between this and the Chevy Traverse because they are basically the same vehicle underneath. So not as pretty from the side profile as it is from the front with that concept-y styling, but I do like some of the details back here. You can see there's a lot of intricacy in this taillight. We kind of have this wavy chromish finish here in the taillight as I show you the full rear view of the Enclave. Pretty typical SUV styling here. We've got the all-wheel drive version of the Enclave. You can get front-wheel drive as well, as we'll talk about out in the road, and then you get your Avenir badge right here. Now, we're going to talk about trunk space because this is a very important subject and one of the main reasons I think why you're going to buy an Enclave or one of its corporate siblings like the Traverse. So we do have a foot operating lift gate. You'll get a little Buick logo that shines on the ground. You really won't be able to see it in direct sunlight, but it does a great job of making sure that you know exactly where to kick. And I've noticed that the kick function works really well, better than in most vehicles. So what you'll see is I have a backpack back here, and you'll notice that the amount of trunk space is really good even when I have the third row in place. So there's 23.6 cubic feet of storage behind the third row. To give you an example of how good that is, the Kia Telluride, which is a massive vehicle, only has 21 cubic feet. So this has 2.5 more. The Chevy Tahoe only has 25.5 cubic feet of space, so only a little bit more than this Envision has. So that is a massive amount of space even when you have the third row in place to haul a bunch of kids or even adults around. And if you need even more storage, look at how deep this is down here. We have a really nice amount of storage underneath the floor. So just even more storage in case you need it. Now, because we have the Avenir version of the Enclave, dropping these rear seats is going to be super easy. We've got these two buttons here. I'm going to go ahead and click them. You do have to hold, but they go down really quick. You see how quick that was? That did not take long at all. And now with those seats dropped, this is just a massive amount of storage space. You could fit a lot back here. So with the second row folded, we have 58 cubic feet of space. Again, I'm gonna compare these here. We've got 46 cubic feet of space in the Kia Telluride. So 58 compared to 46. So 12 extra cubes here in the Enclave. This thing is massive. Nothing besides like the Tahoe and the Expedition have more than this in terms of SUVs. The Tahoe has 72.6, so definitely more, but nothing in the crossover realm has as much. Now, I will show you what it looks like with these seats folded, but I do have to move over to the second row for that. With those folded, you're gonna have a whopping 97.6 cubic feet of space. Again, the Kia Telluride has 87, so this is 10 extra cubic feet. The Tahoe has 122.9, so yes, things like the Tahoe, these body-on-frame SUVs do have more, but those are the only things that have more. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you, I'm gonna fold down this one seat here. So you do so using this lever here. Hit the front seat, make sure it goes down, it'll fold flat. That's the only way to do it. There's no way to do it from this row. And as you can see, tons of room there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these seats back up. You can see how fast they go up. No time at all, those are very quick. I like how quick those operate. We'll go ahead and close that, hitting the button, and I'll show you the second and third rows. Now the reason I'm coming over to this side is for a specific reason. This car has this kind of lever here on the passenger side. You pull that and it's gonna go ahead and bring the whole seat forward like so that you have a nice opening to get into the third row. Only on this passenger side will you find this lever. For some reason, the driver's side seat doesn't have it, which is a little bit weird. That's very different than other vehicles that I've driven in this segment where you can do that from both sides. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sit down. Now this seat is pretty far back, so it doesn't look like I have a ton of legroom. The third row legroom is actually better than most vehicles in this segment, including the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade. The second row isn't quite as large as those vehicles, but the third row back here is pretty good. I'm not gonna go ahead and say it's the best third row I've ever sat in, but we do have a USB on each side and 2 cup holders on each side as well. So a decent third row, definitely not the best one. And I did just drive the facelifted Hyundai Palisade, which gets a heated third row. There's no heating or ventilation or anything like that back here in the back of the Enclave, although we do have some air vents back there. Now, the second row, we have the captain's chairs. So this will seat up to 7 individuals, 2 up front, 2 back here, and then 3 in the third row. As you can see, plenty of legroom here. I've got a nice armrest as well. I can adjust this seat, sliding it forwards or backwards to give myself more or less legroom. We have our own climate controls down here with heated seats, no ventilated seats back here like we'll get on the Korean options, the Kia and the Hyundai, but I do have a 9-volt outlet and 2 USBs as well. So this is a nice place to spend time. It's just not the best back seat that I've ever been in. We do have our sunroof up here as well, but the only way to open it is going to be from up front. The children back here do not get their own control of the sunroof, which is a little bit of an oversight. I would have liked to have seen GM put a control for it in the second row, but then maybe give the parents up front a button with which they could use to, they could use to stop the kids if they don't want them opening that sunroof. Maybe one of the kids is a little too hot and the other one wants the roof open, and you as a parent have to decide, no, I'm just gonna leave it shut. That would have been a good option. All right, so now we're gonna come to the front row, hit the start button, and just for video quality, I'm gonna go ahead and pivot the car just a little bit out of the light. Pretty easy steering with which to do this. I can show you while we're doing that the 360-degree camera system, which is very high res. We've got a ton of different angles that we can look at. I love this one, which is gonna show you the wheels, so you're never gonna have to worry about like curbing a wheel while driving the Enclave. A very good system. This is one of the best 360-degree cameras I've ever tested. GM just does these really, really well. So Buick redesigned the Enclave's dashboard for 2021. We now have this push button shifter that the execution could be a little bit better. I don't love how it's not that easy to operate while you are trying to like look elsewhere. So that is not the best execution that I've seen of a push button shifter. I would have just preferred a regular one. We also have an 8-inch touchscreen up here, which is pretty small, I gotta say. Only 8 inches in a car with a dashboard this big. Like, look how small that looks from like far away. Not great. Now, the functions on it are at least pretty good. We've got Amazon Alexa, we've got Apple CarPlay, which is deactivated right now for filming purposes, but we do have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, so those are quite nice functions. And then I do like how we have a big volume knob, we have play and or rewind and fast forward buttons, we have a back button as well, and a home button, so you can easily get back to the home screen even if you're in Android Auto. So although I wish the screen were larger, that is just a huge glaring oversight from GM not to put a larger screen on this car. I do like the functionality of this screen, and I do like that there are physical buttons around it. Now, that is tied to an 8-speaker Bose audio system that I'm definitely not impressed with. It sounds, 10-speaker Bose stereo system. It sounds pretty clear, but it doesn't pack a huge amount of punch. For a semi-luxurious vehicle, I'm just a little bit disappointed with it. We also have some gauges here. I'm a little disappointed in this as well because I've seen fully digital screens on things like the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade. So the fact that we still have physical gauges on the outside and then a screen in the middle, could have done better. I would have liked a fully digital display. And we have our head-up display up there, which works really well. GM does these really well. We do have controls for it over here. You can make it brighter or change the information that's on it. We've got paddle shifters, although I don't know why you'd use them on a vehicle like this. And this steering wheel is very comparable to what you're going to get on other General Motors vehicles. Down here we have our climate controls, dual zone automatic here with heated and ventilated seats. The ventilated seats are very powerful. They work extremely well, so I'm happy about those. We also have a wireless charging pad. This is not the biggest storage area here. I kind of wish it was a little bit more open, but it works. We've got our cup holders here, and we have some decently nice wood finish here with this kind of cool design. So I'm decently impressed with the materials in here. We have a lot of soft touch and leather here on the dashboard. So this does feel like a decently premium car. There's just not a lot of color differentiation here. Like, I would have liked maybe a lighter color to have seen this in to see if it looks any better. But it's more premium than something like a Chevy Traverse, even in the high trims, especially on this Avenir trim. So we have Avenir stitched into the headrest here with some nice piping as well. And we have some nice diamond quilting with perforation allowing the ventilation as well. We do have our digital rearview mirror, a nice function to have on any 3-row vehicle. We've got a sunroof up here, a normal sized one. You just push this and it retracts back. So I've never quite seen a sunroof design quite like that before, so that's interesting. And as I mentioned, we have the controls for that rear sunroof that I can go ahead and open from here. Again, I wish they would have put a duplicate control back there. So this does feel a little bit nicer than some of the mainstream options, especially from General Motors or Ford. Like, I do think this is a little bit nicer than something like a Ford Explorer, but it's not quite as nice as something like an Acura or an Infiniti. And those Koreans that I mentioned, the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade, are really, really nice in their decked out trims, and I think a little bit more premium than the Envision, or than the Enclave. All right, now it's time to get the 2022 Buick Enclave Avenir out on the road. And this is a SUV that, like I said, I've been very excited to drive actually ever since I drove that Cadillac XT6, because I wanted to see if the Cadillac was really worth the money. And if we check under the hood, it's gonna seem like the Cadillac really isn't worth that price premium, because it has the exact same engine. It's a 3.6 liter V6 engine. This is an engine that General Motors uses across the board in a variety of vehicles, ranging from the Camaro all the way up to the XT6. Here it produces 310 horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque, which is a pretty good number for a large mid-size vehicle like this. It's a very good number, in fact. So when you put your foot down, you get a very nice amount of acceleration once the transmission figures out the correct gear to be in. Speaking of which, it is all tied to a 9-speed automatic transmission, which I really enjoy. I think that General Motors has just been on a roll lately with its engine and transmission combinations. This is an area where General Motors has been thriving recently. The only area where they've sort of fallen short is in terms of their cabin designs, but in terms of their drivetrains, they've been generally excellent. I've loved this 9-speed automatic transmission in a ton of different applications. I drove the Buick Envision years ago, which had a version of this 9-speed automatic, but tied to a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, and it was really, really smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and come to a stop, and we're going to just see what this engine will do. Let's go, Flory. No wheel slip. It even sounds quite good. It's not quite as good as it sounds in the Camaro, but it sounds quite good. The thing that I really like about this 9-speed is that when you're not flooring it like I just did, most of the accelerating you're going to be doing in this car is not going to be over like 2,500, 3,000 RPM. Like, let's just say, oh, I need to pass somebody. It downshifts, and I'm doing my overtake, still not over 2,500 RPM, and I'm around the person I needed to pass. That is really good. Even though this engine doesn't have a lot of torque at only 266 pound-feet, at least comparatively to the horsepower, it feels like I have plenty of torque because this transmission is able to keep the engine at such low revs. You never feel like you're overstressing the engine for an overtaking maneuver, which is something I cannot say for every SUV that this competes against. I noticed that in the Acura MDX, even though I really like that 10-speed automatic, that engine is just so gutless in terms of torque, it felt like it had to exert itself more than it does in the Buick Enclave. So good on GM for a really lovely powertrain here. And you can get front-wheel drive as standard, or if you pay a little extra, you can get all-wheel drive, which can be activated from the little all-wheel drive button on the dash. I did actually notice a little bit of a difference while I was driving it around in the wet when I had to pull out quickly into traffic. I noticed a little bit of wheel slip when in front wheel drive mode. I pushed the all-wheel drive button and then that completely went away. Not a lot of automakers on these all-wheel drive crossovers are offering people an option to turn off the all-wheel drive or turn it back on again. Most of them, the systems are mostly just automatic, so it is kind of nice and cool to see that you do have an all-wheel drive button here if you want. And we do have continuous dampening control is what GM calls it. It's an active suspension system. This is not quite as advanced as their magnetic ride control that you get on their sports cars, but it does a lovely job of keeping the Enclave very comfortable. This is optional only on the Avenir trim, so we do have it here. And the real area where you're going to feel this is this mode button here. We only have 2 drive modes, Tour and Sport. So Tour is going to be your normal sort of comfort mode. I've driven this vehicle over some really, really rough roads, and it makes very short work of them. This is not your like German level of comfort. This is more of your old school American floaty bus type of luxury. Just real floaty, real loosey-goosey over the bumps. You can definitely feel that they're there, but it is so soft and so cushioned and so isolating that you really just don't feel the bumps, or you're not disturbed by them, which is a nice feeling. When I go ahead and put it into its sport setting, you're going to notice that some of the body roll is going to go away. The steering is going to tighten up just a little bit, nothing too crazy or heavy here. But now, when you take a corner a little bit quicker, you're going to notice that the dampers are just a little bit more aggressive as to not have you flopping out of your seat. And it is a nice feature that you can sort of choose between those two if you're taking like a mountain road and you don't want it to be quite as relaxed. I feel like that's when I would really use it if I had like a very curvy commute and my kids were getting a little bit sick in the back. I would actually put it in sport mode to kind of limit the body roll. Now, that being said, I still don't think that this Enclave is quite as nice of a vehicle to drive as 2 vehicles. The Buick Enclave, and in fact, all vehicles in the mid-size large segment have 2 problems. That is the Kia Telluride and the Hyundai Palisade. I just drove the facelifted Hyundai Palisade, and it has better steering. I think it just has a better chassis. The engine and transmission in this are at least as good as the Hyundai, but in terms of just like actually being fun to drive, having really nice steering, I think that the South Koreans have pretty much everybody beat. in this category. And that is a problem if you are considering buying a Buick Enclave, because this is considerably more expensive than those, although you do get that Buick badge. If you want to talk towing, the Avenir can tow up to 5,000 pounds, so if you have like a small boat or something that you want to bring on your family vacation. And in terms of fuel economy, it's decently comparable to what you're going to get in other vehicles of this size. If you get front wheel drive, you're going to get 17 mpg in the city, 25 on the highway, and 20 mpg combined. I'm sorry, that's actually with all wheel drive. If you get it with front wheel drive, you'll do one better in each of those categories. So losing 1 mpg to opt for all wheel drive, really not that bad. So I do like how the Avenir drives. I'm not exactly sure if it's my favorite midsize SUV, especially for its price, but it is very competent and very nice. The one area where it really falls short of some others, and where I think GM could have put this vehicle ahead of so many others, is the adaptive driving systems. We do have adaptive cruise control that works just fine. There is lane keep assist, but I've noticed with General Motors, if it doesn't have Super Cruise, the lane keep assist might as well not even be there. I just don't feel it working the way I do in some other vehicles. I wish GM would have given this car Super Cruise. It is the most luxurious Buick, and it just shows that GM doesn't want to give its flagship technology to Buick, at least just not yet. They've put this on a Chevy Bolt, for goodness sake, so I don't know why they couldn't have put it on an expensive vehicle like this. This car's corporate sibling, the Cadillac XT6, has it, so that might be at least one reason why you'd want to consider the Cadillac. All right, so that was the 2022 Buick Enclave Avenir. Now, this is a pretty nice mid-size SUV. I think it really shines in terms of its space inside, and some of the technology is quite good as well. But I think the real reason why you would want to consider a Enclave over some other mainstream or even the luxury mid-size SUVs is the price, because it does fall quite nicely in the middle. So a base Enclave is going to run you $44,800. That is a little bit more than some of the mainstream mid-size options from Toyota or Honda, but it is certainly a lot less than something like an Acura or an Infiniti. Now, if you want the Avenir, this fully loaded, luxurious version of the Enclave, that's going to start at $57,100. You're going to want to add the $1,600 Avenir Tech package. It's going to get you LED lights and that adaptive suspension that we tested. That is going to bring the total as tested price of this car to about 59 grand. So still under $60,000. So again, less than something like an Infiniti QX60 or an Acura MDX. Now, I mentioned that I really wanted to see how the Enclave compared against its corporate sibling, the Cadillac XT6. We've already seen that this is much larger inside than the XT6, and it gets similar technology inside aside from Super Cruise. But the XT6 starts at $48,595, so about $4,000 more than the Enclave starts at. But if you load it up with options, it can go over $80,000, which is at least $20,000 more than the Buick. So if you don't need the hands-free Super Cruise technology and you want more space, I think that the Enclave Avenir is the obvious choice. I like it a lot more as a total package than the Cadillac. I really hope you've enjoyed this review of the 2022 Buick Enclave Avenir. For more videos like it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. And if you want to read more about the 2022 Buick Enclave Avenir, be sure to check out carbuzz.com. I'll see you next time.